Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones, and welcome in to this beautiful Wednesday show. I have a fantastic guest here in the studio today. You guys get ready, because we have Vic Cundiff here of Dogman Encounters and my Bigfoot Sighting, a couple of other shows. He's got all his channels that he does. He is on the forefront, one of the biggest names in Dogman research and encounters. Lots. If you want to hear some real Dogman encounters, you guys go to Dogman Encounters and Dogman Encounters Radio to go listen to some of the accounts that Vic has on his show. Of why it's just wild, y'all. If you want to know if Dogman's real, go to Vic's channel, okay, or come to my channel, the Cryptid Huntress, too, okay. But I'm just saying, it's a wealth of knowledge over there. And so please subscribe to Dogman Encounters and my Bigfoot Sighting if you guys haven't already. And welcome into the show. We have a lot to talk about. I was just recently on Vic's show. I think that was last Friday, about a week, almost a week ago. Okay. Drewski and I, Drewski of Cryptid Warfare Operators and Survival, we went on there and talked about hunting dogmen. I know it sounds terrible. I know, y'all. We are out there investigating. I like to say I'm investigating. But yes, we are. I think they're hunting us probably more than we're hunting them. But yeah, that's what we do. And that's how we roll. And we had a really good time over there. And I just saw Hondo in the chat too. Hondo was just on Vic's show this week. Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to bring you up in just a minute. Actually, we're going to talk about you just a little bit today, Hondo. So thank you so much. And oh my gosh, before the show even gets started, Hondo gave a super sticker. Thank you so much. As promised, Hondo is here, Jessica. Thank you, Hondo. You're the coolest, man. Wonderful encounter here. I know it's scary. I say wonderful as in like it's cool for us Dogman researchers. Terrifying for you, Hondo. But he's had some encounters with Dogman himself. So you guys, please go back and listen to that episode. Past couple of episodes. I think there's been 2 episodes with you, Hondo, on there. And we'll talk with Vic about that in just a minute. So thank you again for being here so much. I appreciate it. All right, y'all. Let's see. If you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows and everything, please go to my website for all of my archives. It's thecryptidhuntress.com. You can find a calendar of events, things I'm going to be doing, get into my personal business over there. I'll just go to my website and you can find everything you need over there. Also, I do have a Patreon if you guys would like to support the channel. It's the Cryptid Huntress on Patreon. And thank you to all of my members. You guys mean the world to me. I really appreciate it. And also, I do have a shop on Etsy. It's called War Woman Goods if you guys would like to check out the goods. I sell like vintage jewelry and stuff over there. So thank you guys so much for all your support throughout the holidays. It's really been a blessing for sure. And I appreciate all of y'all. I do include some Cryptid Huntress merch with every purchase. So if y'all want some stickers, pins, bumper stickers, whatever I got to throw in that bag, I throw it in there. And so thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart for all the support over the past couple of years now, y'all. It's been amazing. Also, you can also become a channel member here too. It's called the Hunt Club. And you have to go to your laptop or your PC, I think, to hit that join button. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for your support with that too. Okay, well, let's get to our show, y'all, because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. This is like our Dogman bonanza, the Jubilee, the Christmas bonanza today. We do talk about Dogman quite a bit on the channel. And yes, I do go out in the field and I do go look for Dogmen. Okay, I do. I do investigations and I see Drewski up in here today. What's up, Drewski? Thank you. I know you probably had a long night working. So this is cutting into your sleep time. But thank you for being here today. And I go with this guy right here. Wait, it's the opposite. I go with this guy out in the woods and we do go Dogman hunting, actually. And you can catch that episode on Dogman Encounters from last week. Okay, we have Vic Cundiff here. Speaking of Dogman Encounters, Vic has always been fascinated with cryptids and has been interested in things that go bump in the night for as long as he can remember. He spoke with his first Dogman eyewitness in 2007 and has spoken with countless eyewitnesses since. Some days he's contacted through dogmanencounters.com by as many as 7 or 8 new eyewitnesses he's never heard of or never heard from before. He helps Dogman eyewitnesses come to terms with their encounters and is the host of a podcast called Dogman Encounters, where eyewitnesses share the details of encounters they've had with dogmen. In addition to the work he does trying to help Dogman eyewitnesses, he also produces 2 Bigfoot-specific podcasts called My Bigfoot Sighting and Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. All podcasts are available for listening on your favorite podcast platforms. You guys, please help me welcome to the show our buddy, Mr. Vic Cundiff.
Thanks for having me, but after a build-up like that, you're going to make me nervous. Now stop it, Jess.
Well, this is your interrogation today. Okay, I got you in the hot seat.
Uh-oh.
So, don't be nervous.
I love it. Yeah, let's do this.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for being here today, Vic. I really enjoyed talking with you and kind of bouncing ideas off of you sometimes because, you know, being a field, being a field researcher, I get a lot of enjoyment. And I know this is crazy. I get a lot of enjoyment from listening to your podcast. And it can be terrifying too, right? But to have a platform like yours where all these eyewitnesses are contacting you. I mean, you have more eyewitnesses than any other channel out there, that's for sure. When it comes to firsthand encounters with dogmen and werewolves. And so as much as I can, I'm always trying to tune in live to all of your shows. And I definitely catch them on the backswing if I missed them, because I know I'm a little busy. Okay. I can't catch all of them, but I really appreciate your channels. Okay. And thank you so much for hosting me and Drewski this past week on your channel as well. So I just want to thank you. And thank you for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks again for having me. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a great time, a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I see Hondo in here, and I want to thank Hondo again for that super sticker. But he and I had messaged back and forth a little bit about dogmen in the research area. I want to call it a research area, but he's not so much a researcher as he is an experiencer with dogmen. And he's had some terrifying encounters out there in East Tennessee. And Vic, you know, that's one of our areas that we research out there.
I do. Yeah, that area is loaded with them.
It is, which is hearing what he encountered and what he went through is it's pretty scary. And I know there's not a whole lot of people. I do not recommend anybody go hunting these things down. Okay. And I'm very much like him in the way where he was really warning against it, right? You know, going after them, hunting them down, you know, but as a researcher, I can't help but getting out there, Vic. Okay. That's kind of what we do. But we're pretty safe with it and everything. But I mean, from what he was saying, there's really not much you can do if they want to come at you. And we're aware of that. If they want to come at us, they could unalive all of us, right?
Oh, definitely. I cringe when I hear researchers, and I know you didn't do this, but I cringe when I hear researchers, and I hear tons of them talk about safety, as if their safety is dependent upon what they do, taking this gun, doing this, doing that. If a researcher heads out there to research these guys, puts themselves in their presence, their safety is solely dependent on the actions of the dogman or dogmen and whether they decide to or not to take them out and unalive the researchers. If a dogman has it in its head and wants to take you off the face of the earth, then there's nothing you can do to stop that. There really isn't.
I think that's the same not only with dogmen, but also with Bigfoot too. Any kind of creatures that are out there. I mean, even ETs, whatever's out there. Okay. We feel like we're the top of the food chain. Us humans like to think that. But being humble and being humbled out in the field several times, I know that's not the case. And so, you know, you have to have a little level of, I want to say crazy in you. Okay. Adventure, maybe that's a better word, or just no, you know, I want to say no fear, or like I said, just being a little bit crazy, okay, getting out there, or just not fearing death, I guess. And I know that sounds kind of terrifying for a lot of people, But to do the things that some of us do out here, like myself, you can't fear death, because every time you go out there, there's a chance that you could die when it comes to things like this.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Sasquatch too. They're definitely on that list as well. When you're talking about something as big and as fast and with implements of destruction like dogmen have, and just the strength of a Sasquatch, well, the strength of a dogman too. Add on top of all that, the fact that they can move at cartoonish type speeds. Yeah, if they want to take you out, they can do that at will, really easily. But yeah, I know you take a lot of precautions and you're level-headed about it. So if you're going to go out there and put yourself amongst them, then I mean, at least you're going about it the right way. Thank goodness for that too.
I know, like I say, you gotta have a little bit of crazy in you, I guess, to do stuff like that. But that's how I've always felt about the Bigfoot as well, though, and that's the head of at least one of my teams has always said, if they wanted to hurt us, they would. And there's been many nights where we've been out in the field in the daytime too, where I've had big rocks thrown at me before, and they landed at my feet, and I know that if whatever threw that rock wanted to hurt me, it would have hit me in my head. Okay, it would have hit me, and it didn't. So, but I'm not saying we should be pushing the limits by any means. Okay, you should not be pushing the limits. But it is a precautionary tale to everybody, that there is. Let this be a precautionary tale. There's a lot of danger in being around these cryptids, and you can definitely figure that out by listening to a couple of your episodes, Vic. Okay. With a lot of the people that you interview on your show, including Hondo over here, and I've noticed a lot of people who are into the dogman phenomenon are former military personnel, law enforcement officials, fire chiefs, police officers. A lot of the people on my teams have that background. Why do you think that is? Do you have any thought on that?
Well, you're normally talking about people who have a deep love of the woods when you're talking about people with a military background and a lot of people in law enforcement. So I think it's only natural. You're looking for that next. Well, also the fact that they're military, ex-military, present duty, current duty, military, you're talking about law enforcement. There's going to be that addiction to adrenaline also. And if you find out all of a sudden that, hey, guess what? There's something out there in the woods that looks like a giant werewolf. Well, that's just going to be right up their alley in a lot of cases. So I think it's just a natural fit. That's why so many of these people that head into the woods looking for dogmen and for Sasquatch are vets and also either ex-law enforcement or current duty law enforcement. I think it's just a natural fit, basically. I think that's why they fall into it.
Yeah, I think so too. You got the adrenaline thing right too. I don't see how a lot of people, and that's why I don't really take anybody that's not on my team very often. Let's just say maybe once or twice I have, but people that are not on my team that aren't completely prepared for what's going to be out there, I don't take them into the woods on any kind of expeditions or anything, because you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. And a lot of people are not prepared for the things that are out there, including dogman. I'm not even saying I'm ready to face an entire pack of dogmen myself. Okay. But here I am. Okay. So, and part of most of my research is done in the Appalachian Mountains. And that's where Hondo has had a lot of his encounters. That's where, Harley Owens, I don't know if Harley's been on your show yet. Several people who have very pretty good evidence of dogmen have those encounters in the Appalachian Mountains. You seem to have had several people on your show that have had some Appalachian dogmen encounters. Some people say werewolves. Okay, werewolves as well. We recently talked about the Werewolf Springs werewolves out of Tennessee. I don't know how far that is from where Hondo lives. I'm not sure the exact location where he lives. I didn't look it up on the map. I think he did mention where he lived. But there's a lot of werewolf activity in Tennessee. Why do you think that might be, Vic?
Oh, I think it's because of the habitat you find there. All those
Mm.
rolling hills with tons of tree cover and game galore and a lot of moving water. It's got everything that they would want. I mean, it checks off all the boxes. So it's only natural that they would be there. And also, too, a lot of caves and everything, it just checks off all the boxes. So it's just natural that you would find them there. Now, they do head into places where you're not going to find caves and not a lot of moving water and not tons of game. But yeah, when you have a place like that, that's a perfect habitat. Yeah, it's no wonder you find so many dogmen there. It's a given.
Yeah. People ask me often, where do dogmen and even Bigfoot too, like where do they live? Where do they go? And I seem to think, and I don't really know exactly, but I think that they probably go into caves and underground. Is that, and I know you see patterns in all the encounters that you are taking, all the reports you're taking from people. Would it be your opinion that they're living in caves and maybe living underground?
Yeah, I'm sure they do live in caves and underground, or maybe not living there, but they do take refuge there sometimes. But there's this idea that they need shelter like that. I don't think they do. I really don't. There's this idea also that if it's really nasty out, like a blizzard, for example, or just pouring rain, that you're not going to find these guys. There are people who've had encounters with these guys that mistakenly think that, okay, well, I'm terrified. I live in the woods. I'm mortified by the idea of bumping into another dog man. So I'm going to do this and do that to try and make sure I don't have another encounter. Well, they realize they need to do something, get something done outside. Well, there have been times where it's been just almost blizzard conditions. And they think, okay, well, it's so nasty out. It's so cold. It's blowing. There's so much snow coming down. Surely they're not going to be out and around now in this nastiness. So I'll head out and do what I need to do. Well, yeah, these guys, they do go out in that weather also. But you're talking about obligate carnivores too versus Sasquatch who are omnivores. Being omnivores, Sasquatch, they can stockpile things that they can subsist on, whether that be bark or I should say cambrium, in really tough times from pine trees and other things to get by. Dogmen, they have to make a living by eating meat. So if it is really nasty out, I mean, that's the best time to hunt. When deer are bedded down in a really nasty storm like that, they can't hear the dogman approach. They can't see the dogman. So predators, they do get out and about in really bad weather like that, including these guys. So yeah, you talk with people who are right out there on the edge of the bridge, ready to jump. And because of that fear, they go out in conditions like that when they think that they're going to be safe from bumping into one. And unfortunately, sometimes they find out that's not the case, is basically what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
The fact that these guys are out and about in all conditions, and I don't think they have to seek refuge from caves very much at all. I mean, it seems like they're not affected by the cold or by the weather. So how often they go into caves, I don't know. They definitely do, but how often they do that, I really don't know.
Yeah, neither do I. You brought up a good point. Dogmen are probably carnivorous. Okay, just mostly carnivorous. You don't hear about dogmen picking berries and stuff like you do with Bigfoot. Okay, but do you think the dogmen would have the same diet as dogs?
No,
Or what? No. Okay.
no.
What do you
Dogs
think?
are omnivores. Dogs
Hmm.
have carnassials that are adapted for processing meat and also vegetation. Dogmen don't. Their teeth are not set up. Their carnassials are made to process meat. All the teeth in their head, or heads, I should say, are just perfect for processing meat. No, they're obligate carnivores. They don't, like you said, eat berries and nuts and things like that. So in some ways, I guess that can be an advantage, but in other ways, it's not when you're so specific in what you can subsist on.
Oh yeah, that's good information to know. So they will eat humans. They will eat us. So y'all be careful out there, okay? And I'm speaking to myself here, okay? We have a comment in the in the chat right now. This is from Andy. Hey, Andy. He's got his own podcast out of the UK. I think he might have been on it, Vic, at some point. I vaguely remember seeing you on there. He says there seems to be more and more dogmen type creatures sighted in the United Kingdom. I keep hearing this too, Andy. Thank you so much for being here. What's up with that, Vic? I've heard many stories of werewolves out of the UK. I was actually going to bring one up with you today, as a matter of fact. The Hexham Heads case out of the UK. Lots of sightings out there, and I don't know if this has always been that way. I mean, we've heard about werewolves, not so much dogmen. I know there's a difference, but is there a reason for an uptick in sightings of dogmen in the UK right now? Do you believe?
Well, I haven't seen that. I get asked that all the time. Get asked about the uptick in dogman sightings, and from when I've started, I've never noticed an uptick. It seems like there are no more reports now than when I began a little over 10 years ago. So it might be a matter of Andy being more and more in the public eye as time has gone by, and that's drawn more eyewitnesses to him. But yeah, I haven't noticed an uptick in the US or any other place as far as encounters coming in about these guys. So yeah, I'm not really sure what's behind that. I think it's just because Andy's doing things the right way, just like you are, and more people are finding out about him and about you, and that's why more people are coming to you to report their experiences. But as far as there being an actual uptick in encounters happening, I don't believe that.
That's a great point, Vic. And so, yeah, I seem to notice an uptick in people telling me about their reports and getting the information on more and more reports. But you've been doing this a long time. How long have you actually? I remember reading it was 2007, I believe, was the first time you took your first report. How have things? I guess you just said that they haven't changed much. There's always been a lot of reports. Have you seen any changes though between 2007 and today with the dogman reports that you're getting?
Well, as time has gone by, it's more and more in the public eye. I mean, when I started, it really wasn't all that commonly talked about. So eyewitnesses seem to be more reluctant to share their experiences with family and friends, but people have come on the show who later on they found out a family member listened to Dogman Encounters. They had no clue, listened, and they brought up the fact that they heard them come on the show, and people from work, they heard a coworker come on, and this coworker who was the guest had no clue that these people listened. So it seems like it's just more and more in the public eye as time has gone by. So it makes people more likely to share it with family and friends. But there really haven't been any wholesale changes outside of that as far as this whole thing goes. I mean, it's been pretty much the same business as usual.
Oh, yeah. Okay, same business. Well, that's good to know, and it's also kind of scary. Okay, because that means that there's a lot of these things have been around. They've been around for a long time, but 2007. You've been doing this longer than me by at least 5 years. Okay, about 5 years, maybe 4 years, something like that. But I never started taking dogman reports until recently. Okay, because I started off doing Bigfoot field research, but we come across potential dogmen out in the field and dogman tracks and dogman sign sometimes, and it's kind of morphed. Okay, like my whole research has really started encompassing dogman now with my team, like you met with Drewski. But I think that's how a lot of researchers that are out in the field, it kind of progresses, I guess, looking for Bigfoot, and then it goes into the dogman phenomenon kind of. It may also be because we know that Bigfoot's out there. We've got all this evidence of Bigfoot, and now we're looking for the next thing that's a little more, it seems to be more elusive, in my opinion. Because we see Bigfoots often, we have those experiences more often than we have dogmen. And so that's kind of how I feel the research, the online community kind of is. It's like we kind of established Bigfoots here. Now we're like, I don't know. Do you think that it's because Dogman's more elusive or because Dogman's more violent? Is that why it's getting more popular now and more people are kind of focused on it?
I think the reason why Dogman seems to be gaining in popularity all the time is because what initially drew people to the Sasquatch phenomenon is amplified by a factor of who knows how many times when it comes to dogmen, the creep factor, everything. So I think it's just a natural progression that people, once they find out about dogmen, are drawn more towards the dogman phenomenon than the Sasquatch phenomenon. I don't think it's ever going to attain the level of popularity that Sasquatch has and acceptance, but I mean, who knows where we're going to go from here? I think it's just going to keep on gaining ground. That I do.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've been listening to some of the shows you've been doing, some of these encounters, and I've been getting my own reports from people who come on my shows that talk about dogmen seeming to be demonic. Okay. And I never, when all the years I've done this research out in the field, I never really felt like I had experienced something that was truly demonic out in the woods before. I've had some screams and stuff, I've been kind of screamed at before. To me, it didn't feel demonic, but I'm getting that a lot more now. And I'm hearing that a lot more in these encounters, is that people believe that they're demonic or there's something very evil about them. How do you feel about that? Do you think that dogman could be demonic?
I do. I definitely do. When you do what I do and talk with the volume of eyewitnesses I have and do, it's only natural that you bounce back and forth from one moment being convinced they have to be just flesh and blood creatures that are out there scratching out a living in the woods. And then the next moment you're convinced they have to be demonic entities. If I had to bet between the two, I'd say they most definitely are some form of a demonic entity. When you look at all these things they do that no flesh and blood creature would be able to do, there's something going on there. There really is. Things behind the scenes that haven't been put out there for the public, there are things like that that really point towards that. Of course, I'm not at liberty to share these things, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they are demonic beings, or at least have demonic qualities to them, however that might work.
Mm-hmm. Well, they are definitely apex predators. We know that. And Dan's from the UK as well, I do believe. He says, I wonder, do they hunt in the fog more so? Do all apex predators use the environment like that? And I've heard of stories of potential dogmen, or some say gugways too. Will get into the fog in places like Yosemite Park, and they'll use that as cover. Of course, they're going to use something as cover, right? I mean, they're very elusive. You're not going to see them. Fog is a perfect cover for cryptids. But some say they're responsible for some of these missing people in our national parks. And so I think that, yes, they do hunt in the fog a good bit. What say you, Vic?
Oh, sure. Yeah, hunting in the fog, that's just a natural thing to do for them. When they're trying to sneak up on game, like a deer, for example, that's bedded down, when it's foggy like that, that takes away the deer's sight. And that leaves only one effective sense that the deer can use to detect that dogman's presence, and that's hearing. They're going to approach, if they can, if they're aware of the deer's presence, they're going to approach it from downwind so they can smell the deer, but the deer can't smell them. So that means, yeah, there's only one sense that the deer can use to detect the dogman. And if it hears a twig snap, for example, it's not going to know what that is. It's possible that snap might have been from something else. But yeah, I think it's only natural that they're going to do that. I really do. Storms, things like that. Yeah, that's why they go out into bad snowstorms and heavy downpours and things like that on stormy nights. It's just natural that they would do that to take advantage of any opportunity. They're predators, so they are going to take advantage of any opportunity. But yeah, these guys, they don't have any trouble feeding themselves. Even if it's not stormy, they can run down any deer as long as they're within a fairly decent range. They can run down that deer. I mean, whitetail, for example, people really overestimate their speed. Whitetails, they top out at 35, which if you're on foot as a human, yeah, that seems really fast. But compared to these guys, that's not all that impressive. It's no wonder they don't have any trouble running them down, or Sasquatch. Pronghorns, yeah, they can hit 60, which that's cruising. But I mean, around most of the US, you're going to find whitetails or mule deer, other resources that they can just exploit and easily feed themselves. So it's no wonder that they do so well.
Yes, and they also are very good at not only running fast, and tracking down their prey and hiding and concealing themselves within the environment. They're also good at camouflage. Okay, and that's the same as concealing themselves in the environment. Speaking of the camouflage, our friend Cryptidville, who's in the chat right now, he's one of my moderators, by the way. What's up, Cryptidville? Mark had an incident. He's been on the show and talked about it, where he was near the LBL, the Land Between the Lakes up in Kentucky. And he had an incident where he saw what he thought was a deer. Speaking of deer. And it took him a minute to focus in on it until he realized it was actually what appeared to be a dogman with its face covered in paint. Like it had taken its hands and like rubbed white paint down its face. So that gives it kind of a humanistic characteristic, in my opinion. Have you had any other stories or encounters from people that have come on your show or have given you any reports on something similar?
No, Mark was the only person to ever come on the show and talk about that. He talked about the war paint effect that the dogman had put on its face and everything. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe them observing Native Americans doing that back in the day and doing that to emulate that. I don't know. But yeah, it really makes you wonder why in the world a dogman would do something like that. But you are talking about a true apex predator with ridiculous levels of intelligence that supersedes our own in some ways, I'm sure, with a lot of time to kill, pun intended, with a lot of time to kill on a daily basis. So maybe they're doing things like that just to entertain themselves. I don't know. I think frightening people to within an inch of their lives, I think that is a favorite pastime of theirs. That's one of the ways they like to pass time. But you can't think for these things any more than you can think for a person. So all these things are just suppositions.
Oh, yeah. Oof. I just thought of something. I don't know if we should go take this route today, but I'll just mention it, okay? Because it's about when people have been, let's just say potentially attacked by a dogman. I've been given some interesting, blind, like coordinate remote viewing targets before. And when you said that about scaring people within an inch of their lives, that's actually interesting that you said that, because in cases where I do believe people have really been unalived, as we say on YouTube, by dogmen, in those targets that I did, I was picking up on something that was targeting the adrenalized blood. Okay, so we don't have to go into that conversation. I know it's sensitive, especially for YouTube purposes and stuff, but I just wanted to make that note. And it makes it even more terrifying, but that would indicate that they are not there they're there to kind of play with their prey before they strike.
I don't believe that. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's literally spoken with thousands of people who have been caught dead to rights by a dogman, that if it was after adrenalized blood, well, it was well within arm's reach, and it could have killed them and had all the adrenalized blood it wanted. But instead of doing that, it allowed them to leave the scene. I think they just, in almost every case, they just want to get a rise out of you, frighten you to within an inch of your life. And then once they can see that's happened, well, mission accomplished, move on. And then I get all these messages from people when I talk about things like that, how they say, well, Vic, you're full of it, because the people who have been killed by these things, they can't talk about their experience. But if it would be one thing if I would have had a sample size of 10 people, of 50 people who I've spoken with who were caught dead to rights by a dogman in places where it was just so remote that they never would have been heard or seen from ever again. But they were allowed to leave the experience without a scratch. Well, that shows a pattern there. I've got a sample size of thousands upon thousands. Again, it'd be one thing if I was dealing with a sample size of 10, 50 people at the most. But no, when you've got thousands upon thousands of people reporting the same thing, the dogman had me dead to rights. It was looming over me. It had me dead nuts to rights, but allowed me to leave after it could see that I was mortified. So yeah, that's why I say what I do. And after doing this for as long as I have, being exposed to so many eyewitnesses, the grand total of credible eyewitnesses who've ever told me about being intentionally harmed by a dogman or dogmen they've encountered, After a sample size of thousands upon thousands, the grand total of eyewitnesses who've reported being intentionally harmed, attacked, in other words, is a whopping 7, maybe 8, maybe 9 at the most. So that's why I cringe when I hear about all these shows. It seems like week in, week out, they're talking with eyewitnesses who were dealing with this attack, dealing with that attack. I mean, the numbers just do not add up. Now, yeah, you get more views when you put out content like that because fright sells. It does. But as far as truthfulness, I just don't buy it. I do think that dogmen do attack people once in a blue moon. You are going to have deviant examples of anything that's out there. You have deviant people who will kill you if they get the opportunity. But as far as these guys being wired to kill people as soon as the opportunity presents itself, well, my case, it answers that. If they were wired to kill people as soon as the opportunity presents itself, like I said before, I wouldn't have spoken with thousands upon thousands of people who were right there, caught dead nuts to rights, but allowed to leave. So that's my opinion on that.
Oh yeah, there's a word that I love using. It's called loosh. Okay, but I don't even think that they're. Maybe it's not like they're trying to get that loosh. I think they're just trying to get you out of their territory. I think that dogmen and all cryptids, including Bigfoot, I know especially Bigfoot because that's what I deal with the most. They just don't want you in their territory, and I think that's the case with a lot of these dogmen. And speaking about territories, dreams are. I was going to say dreams are off limits here. When it comes to dogmen invading our dreams and stuff. But Jay Simmons, thank you so much for the super stickers. I've seen both of them on here. Thank you so much. What do you both think about dogman dreams? Very curious. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. I have not had a dream with a dogman in it, I don't think. What about you, Vic?
No, I don't dream about them. I talk about them ad nauseum, but people would think I would have nightmares about them and all this. No, I don't have nightmares or dreams, but this is what I do. People think I moonlight, just happen to do this on the side. It's a side hustle. No, this is what I do. I help eyewitnesses. I talk with eyewitnesses about some of the worst encounters you could possibly imagine. But yeah, I mean, I don't have nightmares about this for some reason. I don't know if it's because of how I look at all this or what, but yeah, dreams have never been a problem with me either.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have dreams like Dan has here about running from something. Okay, I wake up all the time trying to, pull the trigger on something and my gun won't work. Okay, that happens a lot in my dreams. But other than that, yeah, there are people that do have dreams about this. I was thinking like Freddy Krueger vibes just then. Like it's not, you can't don't get into my dreams. They're off limits. Okay. But okay, that was an interesting question. I've never been asked that question before, Vic. Have you, about dreaming about dogmen? I love it.
I think I've been asked once or twice about that,
Yeah.
and it's a good question. You would expect me to have dreams about them or nightmares about them, but yeah, I just don't. I guess it's because of how I look at them. I mean, I do when I get a chance to do that, to clear my head, get away from work, I'll head out into the woods and walk some miles. But yeah, I just don't look at these guys the way that so many other people do. I guess it's because of the exposure to all these eyewitnesses and being able to compare notes about what to expect from them and what not to expect. But yeah, I mean, I just don't have nightmares about them.
Yeah. I'm looking down. I have so much stuff to talk about today, but I'm looking at in the chat and we have such wonderful questions. So I'm just going to kind of bounce back and forth. Jay Trusiger says, how about the ideas of militarized dogmen and militarized human cryptids? What do you think about that, Vic? Because I get a lot of people inquiring about that, okay, especially when it comes to things like this alleged dogman breeding program that some say occurs out there. Some people have even claimed that they've seen dogmen dressed in military uniforms before. What do you think about that? And what have people told you according to their encounters?
Yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, you remember that one Aliens movie? It was Alien Resurrection, when Ripley's clone had those super abilities. She had alien qualities to her. So
Mhm.
she was kind of a chimera in a way. But yeah, she was sitting in that one room when the doctor came in and the head military guy came in there, and they were talking about their interest in being able to weaponize aliens. And she was sitting there looking at them like they were crazy. And she said something like, sit, stay, roll over. Do you think for a second you're going to be able to train these things? You can't. And this is the same thing with their intelligence. I don't see there being any way you could weaponize them. They're way too intelligent for that. They're going to do what they're going to want to do. They know you can't make them do anything they don't want to do. So why would they cooperate? Why would they, back in the Vietnam War, agreed to be tunnel rats? There's no there. So no, I don't buy that for a second. It has been put out there by a lot of people, but unless a much better explanation can be had, I just think it's all fluff. I really do.
Yeah. I think you're talking about my German Shepherd too. She doesn't listen to me either. Okay. So I'm speaking from experience. Let's see. DJ Tyler Radio. Thank you so much for that super sticker. I appreciate that. I think Matt Williams is in the chat. I just saw Matt. I had your comment I was about to pull it up and then I lost it. Matt was actually asking, and thank you for being here, Matt, was asking about, here it is, found it. What do you think it'll take to get real biologists and scientists to actually take the phenomenon seriously?
They
What do you
never
think?
will. They never will. Unless one is actually laying on a table dead, where it can be examined by any of these scientists or biologists, they never will. It's too big of a leap. So they have been raised to believe that the world is a certain way by being biologists, scientists. They're very pragmatic. So this training they've had ever since they've been toddlers to believe that the world is a certain way, it works a certain way, there are certain ways it doesn't work or can't work. I mean, that's just ingrained in their minds way too deeply, in my opinion, for them to be open to believe that things like these guys are actually out there, unless they actually can stand next to a table that's got a dead dogman specimen on it and see with their own two eyes that they're real. And that's just not going to happen. So I don't think they ever are going to buy into the fact that these guys are out there. I don't.
Interesting take on that. And I agree. I mean, I don't think our government, even if our government does have a connection, I think that they probably do. Personally, I think they probably do. But I don't think they're ever going to just march them out on a stage and be like, "Ta-da! We have dogmen here." I don't think that's ever going to happen. It would be cool if they did, but I don't think they're going to do that. However, I think that we are at a point in humanity's awakening right now to where there's a lot of disclosure going on, a lot of disclosure on a lot of things. And I know I always like to say we are the disclosure. Okay, here on the channel, people like, myself and you, they're doing the boots on the ground work out here. We're able to talk about our findings, okay, and have real life people come and tell their real life stories about it. We can't expect, government officials or agencies or whoever to come out and talk about all of this and to disclose it to the public, but they are talking now about aliens being real. So they're having congressional hearings on them, extraterrestrials. I mean, do you not think that maybe in the future, maybe in the distant future, we could have some disclosure?
No, no, I don't. Acknowledging the presence of aliens is one thing, but I'll tell you why I don't think for a second the government is ever going to allow their existence out of the bag, talking about dogmen. We rely on a daily basis on so many things that are harvested from the forest, from the lumber in our homes and other buildings to paper we write on and print on, and the medications that we take that are derived from so many plants in the woods and so many other things, so many other ways. If the government were to allow it to be known that these guys are definitely out there, guess what? Something that looks like a giant werewolf could be in a woods near you, and quite possibly is. If that was ever allowed to be out of the bag, then what lumberjack is going to want to run a noisy chainsaw 10, 12 hours out of the day where they can't see or hear anything that's going on behind them? If one of these things could be right there behind them, they're not. Who's going to want to live anywhere near a forest when these things could be there roaming around, coming out of the forest? So, yeah, I mean, well, yeah, but
I raised my hand. Me.
we're different. But
Yeah.
yeah, the general public, they're not going to want any part of that. So almost overnight, our economy, the world's economy, would collapse. It really would. So they know that. The government's intelligent. They know that. So they're not going to let this out of the bag to preclude the chance of that happening. Look how poorly we handled something that's much simpler like COVID. I mean, we didn't handle that as well. With the shortages of TP, you know how cranky I get when I don't have any TP in the house, Jessica? It's not pretty, I'm telling you. I mean,
messy situation.
It is. But yeah, I mean, the government's intelligent. They know better than to let that out of the bag. So yeah, that's why they're never going to allow this to be acknowledged, in my opinion.
Yeah, similar to the Bigfoot phenomenon in the national parks. Now Bigfoot's kind of cool and people want to go have a Bigfoot experience and go knock on a tree and do some whoops and stuff. But Bigfoots can be kind of dangerous, a lot dangerous, actually. And I don't think that our national parks rangers and people and I've interviewed several, not on my show, but I don't think I've had one on my show yet, but I've taken reports from park rangers on Bigfoot sightings before here in Georgia. And yeah, I don't know if people found out that there were, 9, 10 foot, 13 foot tall, gigantic Bigfoots roaming around the national parks, they'd lose a lot of revenue. Okay. Because I don't think people would want to take their families there to go picnic and stuff. So I get it. I understand that aspect of it. DJ Tyler Radio must be from Colorado and is wondering if you have an opinion on dogmen in Colorado.
Do I have an opinion? Well, they're definitely there. I've aired episodes of the show where eyewitnesses have come on and talked about their Colorado Dogman encounters. Yeah, they're definitely there. But then again, they're all over. They really are. I had a guy years ago. It was about 10 years ago. There's a guy in Rhode Island who contacted me to kind of thumb his nose at me to laugh and say, well, haha, I don't have to worry about dogmen here in Rhode Island. And I thought about it for a second and I thought, should I break it to him or not? And then I was in an ornery mood that day, so I decided to send him there was an article that I found where there was a dogman someplace in Rhode Island that the locals had seen so many times, they actually had a nickname for it. So I sent that guy that article just for good measure so he could see that. But they're all over. They really are.
I think that there's a lot of dogman reports, werewolf reports. There's something that I don't know if it was Lon Strickler or somebody had kind of labeled an area in Pennsylvania like a werewolf triangle or a dogman triangle. I mean, up there. And there's also a dogman triangle down in Texas. I mean, there's all sorts of dogman sightings all over the place. But I've had several people on my shows. I think some of them have been on your shows as well, out in California. I think Adolph's in the chat today. Adolph has been on your show. He's seen dogman, a lot of dogman sightings out there. And I was wondering if you are familiar. I know you're familiar with it, but have you gotten any kind of information on the dogmen out in California attacking the homeless population?
Well, I've heard about rumors about that, but never anything to substantiate that, to say that it's definitely happening. I mean, it sounds pretty creepy to hear, oh, dogmen are attacking homeless people. Hopefully that's not happening. But when you consider the fact that they can so easily feed themselves on things that taste so much better than humans would, I just don't think that they're making a habit out of doing that. They're so intelligent, they know what comes along with doing that also. It's going to bring people into the area, flooding the area. They don't want any part of that. So I just don't think that's happening. It's possible, but I don't know. I just don't think it's going on.
Yeah. Gee, Simmons, that's a cool comment. That's funny. They would have another TP shortage if they disclosed Dogmen, because people would be, whatting themselves. Okay.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, starts with the S. Okay, for everybody listening on podcast platforms. So we went from one side of the country to the other, talking about the Dogman sightings. A lot of people who send me information about their sightings are actually truckers. Okay, guys who are and women too. I've only had guys contact me though, but people who are driving trucks and long hauls across the country. Most of them from my end are on the East Coast. But going from, just driving on the road, they have a lot of Dogman sightings. Have you found that to be the case with some of the encounters that you're told?
I've talked with truckers about that, and yeah, it seems like a lot of truckers have seen things that they don't know for sure what it was. There are truckers I've spoken with who definitely did see Dogmen. I know there is a highway. I don't know if it's still going on, but there was a highway out in Nevada that there was a buzz amongst truckers, because it was known that if you drive that highway at night, that quote unquote werewolves would tend to run alongside your trucks, the trucks and all, kind of race your truck. I don't know what the end goal was, but for a while there, that was going on. Again, I don't know if that's still happening or not. It's been years since I heard about that, but yeah, I know about that. Outside of that, I don't really know how common it is for truck drivers to see these things.
Yeah, I've gotten several reports of truckers having encounters with them. So I think it's kind of neat. A lot of times they are spotted on the side of the road. And the one that's very famous, well known in my part of the woods, they call it the werewolf. It's a werewolf is what they call it. But I have, let's just say, a family member who worked as a lead dispatcher at the 911 center, and the deputies are my buddies out there, and they would say that they would get calls pretty often of the werewolf on the side of the road in this one particular area in the north part of the county. And people, there at some point about a mile away from my house, they got a call in that it was a couple driving home late one night, and they thought they had hit a dog, a big wolf. And they said that they called in to 911, said, we thought we hit a wolf, but it got up and it ran off on two legs. And that was right by my house. So, but nonetheless, it's, oh, and I was going to say something about the coyotes too. I do believe that, was it Tyler who left some comments earlier? He was saying that the Dogman that he saw looked like a coyote. And it seems to be the case for a lot of these Dogmen, Vic, is that they look more like coyotes until they stand up on two legs. Do you get that a lot?
Not really. I haven't had very many eyewitnesses ever report them looking like coyotes, having coats that were coyote colored, but timber wolves can have that pattern as well. There's a name for that color where it's like a gray base coat with flecks of black and dark brown on the tips. But yeah, a lot of eyewitnesses have reported seeing Dogmen that have a coat that is like that. But as far as looking like a coyote, very, very few eyewitnesses have reported that.
Okay. I've gotten it a couple of times. I wanted to thank Kent for that super sticker. Thank you so much, Kent. And I hope that you do come and see me at a conference. I am live and direct at a lot of conferences and public events these days. So come and see me. And thank you so much, Kent. You're the sweetest. I appreciate that. Okay. Also, I believe that Andy was asking if you've gotten any reports out of the UK of Dogmen sightings. I'm real familiar with your German one. I was going to bring that up today. One of your German ones. But what about the UK?
Yeah, I've had several eyewitnesses from the UK contact me. Had several eyewitnesses from the UK come on the show, actually, and talk about their experiences. There was one guest, David Bunt, who had a couple of encounters in Delamere Forest. He was supposed to come back on and talk about one that he had with a buddy of his, but he hasn't been back on yet. But yeah, I've had several eyewitnesses come on from the UK and talk about their Dogman encounters. These guys are really, literally all over. So yeah, no place is safe if you're planning to move there and not have any possibility of having a Dogman encounter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Gosh, I was going to ask you something because I've encountered this. I know you encountered this too recently. It's a little uncomfortable to talk about, but people who like aren't telling us the full truth. Okay, like hoaxers and stuff. I had something happen to me not too long ago, and have you encountered that? I think you kind of I did catch a little blurb the other day where someone was not so truthful with you about an encounter and you caught on to it. And I the same thing has happened to me before too. And I feel like that, I guess, just is part of being in the cryptid community. Okay. It's going to happen sometimes. But what do you say about that with people that are not so truthful sometimes about some of these encounters? And it only happens at a very tiny little percentage, okay, of the reports that we get and stuff, because it happens in the field sometimes, unfortunately, but also happens on people that call into our podcast and stuff too. Do you have anything to say, like, in regard to that, or any advice you could give me to how to handle stuff like that?
I do.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's no shortage of people at any given time who try to lie their way on to Dogman Encounters. There really isn't. It's unfortunate. It's just one of those things. But when I started doing this, Jessica, I made a promise to myself that I would much rather play the fool and allow someone on the show who is lying their way onto the show, and like I said, me consequently play the fool, than to risk having a situation where you've got a bona fide eyewitness who, due to how they delivered their encounter to me when we're talking behind the scenes, somehow led me to believe they were lying, when in fact they're actually telling the truth. All of us have spoken with people in our lives countless times who we were convinced were lying to us because of our super keen skills at detecting lies. We knew they were lying to us when in
Mhm.
fact they're actually telling us the truth. We were
True.
just thrown off
Yeah.
because of this or that. There was some little thing that just threw us off and made us think that we knew they were lying, when in fact they were telling the truth. I absolutely hate the idea of turning someone around at the door who actually is a bona fide Dogman eyewitness because I mistakenly thought they were lying to me. Now, let me qualify that. I have caught people in lies, and if I catch an eyewitness, a quote unquote eyewitness, in a lie, then that right there, that's it. They're not going to come on the show because fool me once, phooey on you. If they've lied to me once, who's to say that anything they're trying to tell me is true? But yeah, I mean, I have people contacting me all the time. And back to the whole Dogman deaths thing. It seems like every time I've got someone contacting me with the next story about a Dogman attack, when you put their feet to the fire, they very, very rarely ever hold up. I mean, perfect example, there was a guy who contacted me and told me about how he was horseback riding in West Virginia, I think it was, with a bunch of friends, and he was the last one in line, and they were riding up this long gradual hill, and he said all of a sudden this huge dog man came walking up next to him and his horse, and it just swatted him right across his chest, knocking backwards off of his horse. And when he told me about that, I said, wow, if it did that, then did you have to go to the hospital? And he said, yes, I did. I said, did you take any photos of the wounds on your chest? He said, yeah, I did. I said, well, would you mind sending me any of those pictures? And he said, sure, I'll send those to you. Well, after that conversation with him, I put things in place through a connection so that two very experienced trauma surgeons who were based in Colorado, who specialized in large predator attacks on humans, I had things in place through that contact where those two trauma surgeons were going to examine his photos and give me their qualified professional opinion on the validity of those photos. Well, I'm big on not disrespecting evidence that's shared with me. So I contacted the guy back and said, hey, by the way, when you do send me those photos, would you mind if, and then I told him about the trauma surgeons and how I wanted them to look at his photos and give me their qualified opinion on them. He almost left tire marks getting out of there. He wanted no part of them looking at these photos. And that's the way it almost always is when people contact me about the latest attack, how they were attacked by a dogman. That is almost always how it is. It just doesn't hold up. I have had people come on and contact me and report that who they definitely did seem legit, but in almost every case, it's just bunk, it seems like. As far as you go, I can't really tell you how to handle these people. I mean, from the start, I decided, you know what, I'd much rather play the fool and run the risk of bringing a charlatan on than turning a bona fide dogman eyewitness away at the door. But that's the decision that I made. I can't make that decision for you. I don't know your tolerances for this or for that. So yeah, that's a decision that only you are qualified to make. So I really can't give you that much in the way of advice on that, other than your knowledge of dogmen. Now, having said that, I will say this. If an eyewitness contacts me and talks about having an encounter within a certain range, then yeah, I can use vetting questions that only a person, a bona fide dogman eyewitness, would know the answers to. But outside of a certain range, if the dogman was a certain distance away or further, then you really can't do that. But here's a funny story. Episode 34 featured a dogman eyewitness named Michael Lawrence. And if you listen to that episode, you'll remember him talking about camping as a Boy Scout with his troop when he was a kid in the Anza Borrego Desert in California. And that was a show where he came on and talked about that juvenile dogman that came walking up to his tent in the middle of the night with its mom, with what appeared to be its mom. But it unzipped the door of his tent, he said, and came into his tent, sat on his legs, and proceeded to lick his face. Well, when I read his report, when it came in and he was sharing all this information, I thought, wow, that sure is over the top. I really need to vet this guy, because if that actually happened, then he's going to know the answers to certain questions that only someone who actually had a dogman that close would know the answers to. So we set the time for me to call him. I called him that day, broke the ice and everything. Really nice guy. And then we got right down to the point. I started throwing vetting questions at him, and instantly he would throw back the correct answer. I'd ask him another vetting question that only a bona fide dogman eyewitness would know the answer to. What color is grass? Boom, instantly the correct answer came back. Just time after time, I thought, you know what? This guy is the real deal. Holy cow. That did happen. So yeah, that's why he was on the show. He's vetted. He was vetted. Now, again, outside of a certain distance, they're not going to know the answers to these vetting questions. So there's only so much you can do in those instances. But I try to stick to the truth as much as possible. But there are a lot of cases where you can't vet these people. All you can do is just hope that they're telling the truth, and that's all you can do.
Yes. And I had a comment from Brian up on the screen. Brian C. says, I think a lot of these interviewers that have been around a long time and experience in the field have good BS meters. And that's a wonderful point. Yes, we do. A lot of us do. And the fact that, from my standpoint, I was asking for your advice, especially from a podcasting point of view here, because I'm actually pretty lucky, because I am a field researcher, and I do field research and investigations with people from all over the country. And we have our own experiences within our teams. And then we get these reports. And so we're able to go out and do the investigations. And I usually only bring people on my shows personally that are people that I know, or people that are recommended, that have already been vetted, okay, with people who are fellow researchers of mine. So that's how we do things on my channel for the most part, because it is important that we uphold our integrity, I guess you could say. And if people who watch my show for a long time, you'll know I don't show a lot of pictures and videos on my show. If I don't see it, that's because if I don't see it, we don't show it on the show. Like blurry pictures and stuff like that, I don't usually show those on my channel and stuff like that. Okay. But that's just because I'm a pretty hardcore boots on the ground field researcher, and I got to see it to show it too. So I can appreciate, I totally appreciate that, Vic. And I have had at least one instance of a questionable interview on my channel before. And so, yeah, I can very much appreciate that. You asked me a really interesting question when I was on your show. You asked Drewski the same, and you were asking if we were ever worried about being on some, I don't know if you said like a watch list or like government watched or something like that. I want to turn around and ask you the same thing. Like, have you ever, I don't say like worried a little bit or been curious as to whether you're on some sort of like a watch list or something, kind of like how you asked me the other night.
Oh, I'm on a watch list, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't worry about it because I don't cross the line. There's a line that the government has that as long as you don't cross it, you're fine. They'll tell you can talk about it ad nauseum. And that's what I do. I talk with eyewitnesses about their encounters ad nauseum, but if there's evidence that's above a certain level, I don't come forward with it, because doing things like that, that's how you do run afoul of the government. And that right there is a fight you can never win. I mean, you can pound your chest and talk about how tough you are and how you're not afraid. You're not the type to ever fear anything, and run right into a cage with a silverback gorilla and get twisted into a pretzel and all that. If you want to, if that's your thing, if that's your bag, baby. But I'm not going to get into a fight that I can't win. And I plan on helping Dogman Eyewitnesses for a very long time. And if I do wind up making that mistake and stepping over the line and putting evidence out there that's beyond a certain level of quality, then I'm not going to be able to continue helping Dogman Eyewitnesses the way I love to do. So, yeah, I mean, there's such a thing as foolishness, and there's too much bravado mixed in with that. And yeah, I just don't want to fall into that trap. I really don't.
I feel you. I think that there is a definite line that you just don't cross. And I mean, and we're putting out a lot of information here. You know, you're putting out eyewitness accounts. I'm putting out, my own experience with my boots on the ground field research and investigations, and bringing other investigators and researchers on my channel. And, it's out there. Like I said earlier, we are the disclosure. Speaking about the disclosure, by the way, we have Brian saying in the chat today. Thank you for being here, Brian. Thank you for that super sticker. He says, great show, awesome investigatorial skills or tips. See you in July. And what he's referring to is I am one of their speakers at the Full Disclosure Now conference in St. Pete Beach, Florida next July. So you guys come see me down there. I'm going to be talking about Dogman. Okay, and other cryptids, of course. But I think it is important for us to talk about these things, Vic, and that's why I appreciate you so much for being here, and just for being my friend too. I really do appreciate you a lot.
Well, that goes two ways. If I can ever help you, all you have to do is let me know, and I'll be there for you.
Well, thank you. You always are, every time, and I do appreciate that. Do you have any kind of final thoughts today on or advice for the people that are watching and listening in right now about dogmen and what they should do if they ever encounter a dogman?
I do have advice. If you have an encounter with a dogman, treat it like you would a grizzly encounter. Don't do anything to make them think you're challenging their dominance. Don't run. Monitor where they are. Don't turn your back on it. But yeah, as long as you keep a cool head in almost every instance, you're going to be just fine. I mean, like we've already established, I've spoken with thousands upon thousands of Dogman eyewitnesses over the years, and the numbers don't lie. The grand total of people who've ever reported to me, credible people who've reported being attacked by one of these guys, 7, 8, maybe 9 at the most. Well, what does that tell us? If you take 3,000-4,000 people who have had direct interactions with horses and ask them, okay, how many of you have ever been intentionally harmed by a horse you've interacted with? You know that hundreds of them would raise their hands. Swap out horses for camels, and the same numbers would be the case. Hundreds of them would say, yes, I was intentionally harmed. Well, if that number is only 7, 8, maybe 9 for dogmen, what does that tell you? As hard as it is to accept and believe, you're actually less likely to be harmed if you encounter a dogman than if you encounter a horse or a camel or a house cat or a bull or you name it, or cows. So yeah, as hard to accept as it is, The numbers don't lie. I'm never going to say dogmen are safe to be around. Don't think that they are. They might have gotten up on the wrong side of the log that morning when you encounter them or something. And maybe that one is dangerous to be around that day. I'm never going to say they're safe to be around. They're not benign, but the numbers don't lie. This idea that they're bloodthirsty, mindless, monstrous killing machines that are going to rip you apart as soon as they get the opportunity, well, that's clearly not the case. You're listening to a guy, like I've said, who's spoken with thousands of people who they lived the fact that that's not the case. So, yeah, it's all in how you look at it. Look at all this accurately and don't let the bunk, so much bunk that's interjected into this topic, don't let that poison your mind when it comes to dogmen.
Right. Oh my gosh, the lighting in here has gotten really bad. I hadn't noticed. My sun's shining through the window now. That's right, Vic. 100%. I agree with you. And there's a lot of dogman attacks on YouTube. Okay, I see it every single day. Every time I open my computer up, it's like I see another dogman attack, and I think, man, there can't be that many dogman attacks. I feel like I would have heard about them. Okay. But nonetheless, it is like I always like to say on my channel, this is for entertainment purposes only. There's a lot of entertainment out there too. Okay, like just entertainment. And so if you go by what you see on YouTube and the titles of all these shows, you'd think that Dogman is out there just unaliving people every day, all the time. And I don't think that's the case either, Vic. So I think that it is very skewed. Okay. But also maybe some of the cases where people potentially were injured or hurt by a dogman, they're just publicized a lot more and stuff, maybe too. But there's only been a couple of cases where I believe that it definitely was dogmen, according to some of my research. So I don't know. This has been fantastic, Vic. Thank you so much. Can you tell the audience? Oh, and I like this. I'm sorry. Let me go back. Travis King says it's more likely to be unalived by your own dog than a dogman. What do you think, Vic? I agree with that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a reason behind everything they do. There's a reason for everything they do. I'll say that again. What purpose would they have in killing you? They don't have any trouble feeding themselves. What comes with that? If they kill you, if they unalive you, sorry, Jess, if they unalive you, then they know that that's going to flood the area with hairless beings, i.e. people. They don't want any part of that. So, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense that they would make a habit out of killing people, unless it's a deviant one that just ain't right in the head anyway.
Right. And I like to say cryptids are a lot like humans. A lot of them are very sweet and nice and kind, and they'll let you pass without giving you any problems. And some of them will hunt you down and they'll eat you. Okay. So just be aware, everybody. Okay. Be aware and be respectful. You know, that's my philosophy is I respect everything. I go out in the woods with respect. And I feel like as though I carry myself as though I have just as much right to be in those woods as anything else out there. Okay. And that's how in my mind I get by. Okay. Out there. But nonetheless, we got to take precaution because there are things out there in those woods that will eat us for sure. Barry Littleton's in the chat. Barry, thank you so much. He said that this has been one of his favorite shows. And Barry's one of my frequent co-hosts on here. So Barry would know. He watches a lot. He's here as a part of my channel a lot. So thank you, Barry. I appreciate that. Vic is awesome. Vic, thank you so much again. Can you tell the audience where they can find you in all of your shows?
Sure. Dogman Encounters, you can find that on your favorite podcast platform. All of my shows are available on your favorite podcast platform. But the other shows that I produce are Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. That too, like I said, could be found on your favorite podcast platform. My Bigfoot Sighting and My Paranormal Experience. My Paranormal Experience is on hiatus now. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to start producing new episodes, but yeah, that can also be found on your favorite podcast platform.
Awesome. I forgot to type that one in, but my Paranormal Experience, right? Okay, so y'all go find those down there. Actually, everything's in the description box down here below the video today. And if you're listening on podcast platforms, it's in the description. So you guys go check it out. And y'all come back to YouTube, and I'll have this posted on Rumble as well. If you guys want to see the full show, if you want to see my lovely face in the picture that Vic has for his face up here, not for your face, but your avatar, let's just say, the mysterious Vic Cundiff. So, right. And so everybody, I want to thank everybody so much for being here today. You guys have been amazing. We had some of the best questions in the chat today, and I've seen a lot of my good friends and some fellow researchers in here today. David Pardue is in here. He's one of my fellow Bigfoot field researchers. He's out of North Carolina, and he was mentioning earlier in the chat that a dogman would not want to eat him because he tastes bad. Okay, well, I hope that I taste bad too, and they wouldn't want to eat me either, David. So. But thank y'all so much, everybody, for being here today. Vic, I know you have a great chat over on your channel as well. I gotta say, I think I have the best chat on the internet over here. Vic, you have a pretty good one as well. When is your next live show for the audience to tune into?
The next live one, I don't know for sure when that's going to be. Probably not this Friday, but the Friday after that. The show I'm going to air Friday of this week is going to be where a gentleman comes on. He's actually from the UK himself. He lives in Australia now, but he had his encounter 36 years ago in the UK where he and his buddies were trying to frighten one of his other buddies and wound up running up on a dogman. They encountered something that's a lot better at the fright game than what these guys were. But yeah, that's going to be a pre-recorded show this Friday, but yeah, as far as a live stream, probably next Friday.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to be tuning in. I hope you guys will all be tuning in as well. You guys, please go to Dogman Encounters on YouTube and be sure to watch those shows. And I want to thank Honcho again for being here today. Thank you for that sweet donation you gave to the channel before the show started today. If you guys missed the episode with Honcho that aired this past week, please go check that out on Dogman Encounters on YouTube and on podcasting platforms as well. All right, Vic. Well, I hope you will come back and hang out with me again soon and talk some more Dogman with me.
Be glad to. Just say the word and I'll be here.
Okay. I'll say the word, I promise. Okay. All right. Well, Vic, have a beautiful, wonderful Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And I hope you get all that you asked for from Santa this year.
Well, thank you. You too. I hope your Christmas is even better.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope Santa brings me something too. Maybe a Dogman toy or something. We'll see. Okay. All right. Well, everybody, you guys, thank y'all so much for being here. Please come back and see me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I believe Barry's probably going to be here with me for the remote viewing show tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. You guys come and see me there. And then on Saturday night, I have Alan Thomas coming on as we go on the hunt. He is Squatch Zone. If you guys are familiar with Squatch Zone, we're going to be talking about Bigfoots on Saturday night and his experiences out in the field. So you don't want to miss it. For sure. All right, everybody. Vic, thank you so much again for being here. And you guys have a wonderful day. Everybody take care. Keep your head on a swivel. And don't live in fear. Okay, don't live in fear, but just be aware of what we got on with us. All right, everybody. Thank you, Vic. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. All right.